Hey guys, it's me, producer Ross, and welcome to another edition of my ITFC. And today I'm joined by Karl Fuller. Karl, how are you doing, my friend?
Hello, Ross, mate. I'm not too bad at all, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, doing really well. Getting back to some normality. How has been lockdown for you, and with no football and just general life?
I think it's been quite nice without football, really, for a few months, not having to worry about results and Town losing, playing poorly in League One. So it was a nice break. I think I've mostly got to thank my brother and my dad. I was almost becoming a Liverpool fan in the mid to late 1970s, purely because Kenny Dalglish was my favourite footballer at the time, and that goes back to my primary school days, and we had a kit which was green and white hoops. So obviously it looked like Celtic, and I started to get interested in Celtic just through Shoot magazine more than anything, and Panini stickers that my brother used to collect. And I saw Kenny Dalglish, and I thought, he looks like a good player. And when I saw him playing for Celtic and Scotland on TV, I kind of fell more in love with the guy, even though I was only sort of 6 or 7. Then he transferred to Liverpool. And back in the 70s, Ross, magazines like Shoot and Match were full of Ipswich and Liverpool pictures. When I tell my kids that now, they can't believe it.
Yeah.
And my mum brought us both a scrapbook each, and my brother would tear out all the Ipswich pictures and stick them in his scrapbook. And that left me with Liverpool pictures. My favourite colour was red. And I was obviously looking to be a Liverpool fan. And then my first ever game, 1978, August the 22nd, Dad took me and my brother along to Portman Road to watch Ipswich play, believe it or not, Liverpool.
Yeah, of course.
And it was Arnold Muren's debut. Didn't know that at the time. We lost 3-0. And in them days, I stood in the Churchman's on a box. And there was as many red and white scarves around me as there was blue and white. So I just thought it was normal for fans to mix and stand together. Liverpool tore us apart, really, 3-0. I remember Arnold Muren, when I met him, talking to him about the game, and he said as much in his book about how the game just bypassed him with the ball going over his head a lot. And then from there onwards, Dad took me to the odd game, and obviously Liverpool was just the other end of the country and just wasn't doable. And that's how I sort of started to get into Ipswich, really.
We've mentioned a lot about it already, but can you remember the day as a whole? Because you're probably going there as more of like I wouldn't say a neutral, but you're like Liverpool, which your closest team, your local closest team. Because did you born and raised in Clacton, or were you whereabouts were you born and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Colchester, but in them days you got transferred to your local hospital, I think, after a week. So Mum and I came down to Clacton Hospital.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in a village called Kirby Soken near Frinton and Walton.
Okay.
And so we used to travel to games by car from Kirby to Ipswich, and we would take the back road, as I call it, through Tendring and Manningtree and Brampton. And I don't really remember too much about the day, obviously, only being 6. But what I really remember about the evening was thinking that from Kirby to Ipswich, it felt like 400 minutes instead of 40 minutes. I just thought we were never going to get there. There's a massive TV tower at Bradfield near Manningtree, and I just remember seeing, wow, that's a massive aerial. And that always stuck with me. But then it kind of is a bit of a blur, I have to say, about the game, other than the blue and white and red and white around me. I think different eras have produced different favourites. So my last out-and-out favourites were Marcus Stewart and Matt Holland from the early 2000s. Kevin Wilson was another favourite of mine in the mid-80s, which I know sounds a bit of a bizarre choice, but I thought he was a great goal scorer for us. And then early 80s, it would have been Butcher, Mariner and Walk. But my ultimate favourite would be John Walk, purely because he did it in 3 spells for us. You know, he was head and shoulders above everyone in each spell. And a little claim to fame, I've played against John Walk. So, it sort of enhances the fact why I like him. Interestingly, just over a couple of years ago, I went to a surprise birthday party for Paul Mariner's 65th birthday party, and him, Butcher and Walk were all there. there was only 16 of us, and to be in their presence, it was brilliant. They had some great stories to tell, so I've been really lucky. Got to be Bobby Robson, really. He's kind of, I don't know, one of life's inspiration, not just in football, but the stories you hear of how he managed people, treated players like sons, and was just a great manager. Doesn't matter what club he managed, which players, they all say the same thing about him. And you watch old footage of old Ipswich sides managed by Bobby Robson, and straight away there's just this sort of awe about the guy. I watched his Netflix programme, and you just can't help it. I only met the guy once, and that was when he was manager of Newcastle. And after the game, I had my young sons with me. We were collecting autographs. They were really excited when the Newcastle players started coming out. Alan Shearer came out. They got his autograph. And then I spotted Bobby Robson coming out. And, you know, for me, that was the first time I met the guy. And I was just in absolute awe. And I wanted to shake his hand and thank him what he'd done. And as I approached him, two stewards just brushed me off and just wouldn't let me near him. And he just stopped and said, "No, that's absolutely fine. You know, let him come over." I just walked over, and he put his hand out before I could put mine out. And I just sort of said to him, you know, "Thank you for everything you've done for Ipswich Town Football Club." And he said, "Not a problem." He said, "Absolute pleasure. Did it all for the fans, supporters, people like you. And it was an absolute pleasure to do it. And I still love the club dearly, and I'll never forget that." Difficult question, that one, Ross. The obvious answer is Wembley 2000. Seeing Ipswich win there, and the manner in which they won, the way the game sort of had its twists, and the ultimate prize of getting promoted to the Premier League. So that would probably be my most favourite game. But a little mention for Helsingborg away in the UEFA Cup, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to drive to Stansted Airport to catch a plane to watch your football team play. Never done that before, never done it since. I did go to Avenir Beggen in Luxembourg the following season, but I went over on the ferry. And just to go over to another country, just sample the atmosphere, you know, in a different country and what have you. And Harry's Bar, legendary stories, being in there for about 8 hours, having a few drinks with many a Town fan, and then obviously we won. So that's up there, but yeah, Wembley would have to be the ultimate one. I mean, there's probably three really, and probably in reverse order. Neil Thompson at Southend in the 91-92 season, injury time, probably 91st, 92nd minute, running down the left wing. No one else up in support of him, and he just cut into the area and curled the ball right-footed into the top corner. Town fans in the away end packed behind that goal. I was actually right up against the fence behind the net. And that was the moment when you knew that we were going to win the second division. And we were on the pitch after celebrating, and it's just like, even though it's so long ago now, it's just a moment that puts the hairs up on my arms and my back even as I speak. In terms of the best goal, technically, probably Finidi George against Sunderland when we beat them. What was it, 5-0, 5-1? Yeah. When Sunderland had a corner and we just broke from one end to the other before Finidi George chipped the goalkeeper from about 30 yards. And the one that meant everything was Martin Roos's goal at Wembley, because when we were winning 3-2, I didn't want to be in Wembley Stadium. It was worse than any job interview or operation I've ever had, you know, in terms of nerves. We were 3-2 up. Richard Wright made a point-blank save to stop Barnsley from equalising. I thought, just get me out of here. I don't want to be here. Yeah. I was just so nervous, never been so nervous in my life. And then when Rooster broke forward and smashed the back of the net with that fourth goal, it was just the biggest release ever of pressure. And again, we knew what that meant. We knew that we were in the Premier League. Well, this is my favourite in the last 20 years, and a big thanks to my good friend Chris Day for buying it for me to cheer me up. You know, I really appreciate that, and I love it. And I think the reason I love it is because of the yellow badge.
Yes.
But Ross, I've got some special memories here for you.
Yes. Love it.
So going back to that 91-92 season, that's the home shirt from that season.
Yeah.
And again, complete with, well, probably was a yellow badge, but it's not looking so yellow now. But for some reason, that's probably one of my top favourite shirts of all time. And the away kit that season, which we wore in that game at Southend, was orange. And I've got this one signed by the squad from that season.
Oh, I love it.
So I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
And then on the back, just a little note, just to remind me.
Yeah.
Champions 91-92.
Love it. Love it.
So, and a quick story about them is that's when I got my first ever job, and there was a Mick McNeil's sports shop in Clacton. Mick McNeil obviously used to play for Ipswich, opened up a chain of sports shops, and there was one in Clacton, and both of these shirts were in the window that particular summer when they came out, and I didn't have the money to buy them, but with my first pay packet I bought both, and you can't imagine any sports shop, whether it's owned by an ex-Ipswich player or not now, ever stocking the town shirt. I mean, I don't even think sports shops do, because I think they have to get permission from the club. Yeah. And you just don't see it. You go to Sports Direct and you see the big clubs, but you'll never see Ipswich. So it was great seeing them in the shop window. Then I go back to the 81-82 era and a little home shirt.
Yeah.
Again, yellow badge.
Yes.
That's up there with one of my favourites. And the away kit from that season.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, they're very small though, Ross.
yeah, tight squeeze in for you, I think.
Yeah, so I've got that. And then my first ever Ipswich shirt from 1978. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
That's it's just about got an Adidas logo there printed.
Yeah.
The badge is printed. I would have been 6 years old, I think, maybe 7. Yeah, 7, I think. I got that in Christmas 78. I got the full kit, but I can't find the shorts and socks. So, yeah, a little collection there, and it's hard to pick a favourite out of all of them, but, they all mean something special. I would say off the field, the death of Kevin Beattie, because I knew Kevin quite well. We'd always chat when I'd go along to the fan zone before games, and I mentioned earlier playing against John Walk, that was for a Sunday side that Kevin Beattie managed, and it was Kevin's team that came down to Clacton to play us in a friendly, my Sunday team. So I was friends with Kevin, and that was very upsetting when he died. On the pitch, I would probably go back to when we lost to Norwich in the Milk Cup semi-final in 1985. I probably wasn't as emotionally invested when it came to what local derbies meant compared to how I would be now, because I was only 14 and didn't really understand the rivalry. But I just remember listening to it on the radio and hearing Steve Bruce score the goal that put Norwich through to the final, and I just felt really sort of gutted, because in 81 we lost to Man City in the semi-final of the FA Cup, and I just thought, why do Ipswich always lose semi-finals? Obviously we didn't in 78, and the UEFA Cup semi-final in 81 we didn't, but 2 semi-final defeats in a row just felt like that's how it was going to be for us. And of course later on we would lose all them playoff semi-finals, and I kind of got used to those. But yeah, the Milk Cup semi-final against Norwich was probably the hardest defeat I've had to take. You probably remember a couple of years ago the ticket story that happened when I offered to buy a couple of tickets for someone for the Black Friday game when Ipswich played West Brom. And then someone else wanted to join in and buy a couple of tickets as well. And before I knew it, within about 4 days, I had £2,500 donated. The club matched that, and we ended up with about 1,000 tickets that went to local charities and schools. That was really, really humbling. It just snowballed. The story made the BBC Sport website, local TV, radio. And then I was nominated to be a community champion, which I led the team out before the Sheffield United game in December 2 seasons ago, the year we got relegated. So walking out with the match ball, I always wanted to be a ball boy. I always wanted to be a mascot when I was a kid. And then them days you had to basically apply, and it was a lottery if your name got picked out. My daughter was a mascot a few years ago, which was another special moment. Angel, she led the team out against Millwall. And then for me to do it, I thought, well, I never made it as a mascot, but this is as good as. But that was a proud moment and a humbling moment as well.
Well, Karl, it's been a pleasure. Thank you once again for getting involved. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, Ross, and let's hope we have a good season, mate.